for all of us. It's about predicting where the consumer is going and getting half of it right.
One of the things we want to do is create ads that don't suck.
Embracing change creates great possibility.
I'm Alan Hart, and this is Marketing Today.
Today on the show, I've got Laura Hutfless. She's the co-founder and CEO of FlyteVu. Under Laura's leadership, FlyteVu has been named Adweek's fastest growing agencies list for 2021, Chief Marketer's top 200 marketing agencies list for 2022 and 2021, and Chief Marketer Pro Award winner for 2022, Inc.'s 5,000 list of fastest growing companies for 2020, 2021, 2022. I think you get the gist. FlyteVu is on a tear, and the conversation today is no less interesting nor dramatic. We talk quite a bit about her new demanding boss. I'll let you figure that one out in a few minutes. And what FlyteVu's up to, how consumers and pop culture need to factor into a marketing plan and a marketer's journey with where they go with their brand, and much, much more. We talk about purpose and many other things, including Web3. It was a very good conversation, wide ranging, and I hope you enjoy it with Laura Hutfless. Laura, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So we always like to start off with something interesting about a person. And I hear you have a new, very demanding boss. I want to hear more about this.
Yes, she's very opinionated and lets you know what she wants. But she is 6 months old. Her name is Evelyn, and she is very cute, but very loud and independent.
I love that. I love that.
Yes, I have a shirt that says the boss, and then she has a little onesie that says the real boss. So we're reminded of that daily. But I just adopted Evelyn in December. I'm a single mom, so that's been a journey, but a beautiful one, and very lucky to be surrounded by such a supportive team who has just been incredible this year as I've taken some time off to really bond with her and enter motherhood.
I love that. And Evelyn, that's a great name, a very strong name.
Yes, Evelyn Hope. It actually means desired one. So given her adoption story and just everything in her journey so far, I wanted her to always know that she was desired and wanted and loved.
I love that. What a great story. And congratulations. Motherhood. I've never been a mother, obviously, but I've been a dad, and it's no joke. So buckle up.
Thank you. Yes, everyone keeps saying it. It'll get easier. And that's actually true. So if anyone's just entering the first few weeks or months, I'm going to say that back to them. It gets easier. People aren't lying. It's true. But then I feel like it might get harder again, at least in my life, when they hit teen years. But right now we're on the upward trajectory.
Yes. Yeah. My wife and I have had this conversation a couple of times, but it seems like, I don't know if it must be just nature or the universe, the higher being, but like each stage that they go through, I feel like slightly prepares you for the next one. And I would love to check back in with you in 6 months and you go through one stage and you say, Alan, that was complete BS, or actually you might be onto something. So we'll see.
My theory in life is that every chapter of life prepares you for the next one. Even looking back, I think we can all look through the hard times or the painful chapters and see the lessons that we have taken from those and applied or are applying currently in our lives. And so I think that helps you have a positive and grateful perspective of life. And so similarly with children, you can be thankful for all of the experiences because they prepare you for what's ahead. I agree with that.
Love it. Well, from your little boss to becoming the boss, what was your path to founding FlyteVu? Tell me a little bit more. How'd that get started?
Sure. So I always wanted to work in the music industry. I had a degree in art and design, and I wanted to first be a creative director, working for a record label or some kind of entertainment entity. So I moved to Nashville and I got a job at a talent agency working as an assistant. At that time, there weren't very many entry-level jobs other than at a record label or a talent agency were two of the options. So I did that. I, by God's grace, ended up in a role as an assistant to a wonderful female agent who sold sponsorship and endorsements. So not traditional booking role. And I learned a lot. It's where I first started brokering deals between brands and celebrities and It was almost 20 years ago, so before social media even existed. So it was really a new area of entertainment marketing. Brands were just starting to understand how to partner with celebrities, and celebrities were just starting to accept partnerships and not view them as selling out. There was a time when celebrities thought brand sponsorships or commercials were selling out. So I rode that wave for 20 years and went from the big talent agency to a smaller shop, a division of Ticketmaster, to back to another big agency, ended up being CAA, where I spent a good portion of my career. And then about 7 years ago, a lot of the brands had been negotiating with for years asked me to come work for them. And I decided I didn't want to work for one, but I would start an agency and they could all hire me. And I would continue doing the work that I loved with an added lens, and that's purpose. I understood that brands needed to connect in pop culture. That's why they were coming to me, but they needed to do so with a purpose. It's what consumers demanded, and it's what incentivized talent and celebrities. And so we built FlyteVu with the mission of connecting brands to consumers via the power of pop culture and purpose.
Well, I want to come back to purpose a little later in the conversation because you've intrigued me now. But before we do that, let's talk about pop culture and like why this may seem like a really dumb question to ask, but I want to ask it. Like, why should brands connect with consumers via pop culture? And I guess kind of the second question of that is like, why is it, music is one avenue or entertainment marketing is one avenue to do so? Why does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, every brand needs to be relevant. And the only way to gain relevancy is connecting with consumers and with your audience around their passion points. And that's music, sports, entertainment, film, TV, really understanding where your consumer is and integrating into that space. And leveraging the connections that a lot of these properties or talent partners have with their fans to gain relevance with that group or that community. So everybody needs to be relevant. That
makes perfect sense. I love the word integrating that you use because, I guess the other way is to interrupt them with ads, right? But to your point, like it's not likely as relevant in many cases. I mean, advertising industry would argue with me, but like just the interruption itself is kind of pretty jarring. Integrating into what I'm already excited to consume or enjoy or participate in makes it much easier to connect.
Where we start is really at the beginning of what are we trying to accomplish? What is the headline? What is the product we're launching? What is the message we're trying to share? And then who is the right megaphone to share that message? And so that's essentially where we start. And then the tactics by which we bring that to life vary. Be an integration, it can be a celebrity deal, it could be a content series, it could be an experiential event. Every program looks different, but really understanding you have your brand, but your brand is not a person. It's a brand. So who are the right people to connect with that will connect me quickest to my audience and my consumer? So it should start at the beginning. Like absolutely, when you're first starting to plan programs or campaigns, we start with the goal.
Yeah. Well, I like the notion too of starting with the headline that you want to try to create because it does, you are in essence somewhat newsworthy, right? If you're doing this on a grand stage or with somebody that has an influential audience. So what is it that you want them to be saying about you and this partnership that you're going to forge? I'm curious, like I would love to have you share some examples. I know you've got a long list. I'll let you pick which ones you want to go down, but I'd love to hear a couple of examples actually, if you don't mind.
Yeah, well, our clients have come to us for different reasons. I can give some examples. There's a group of clients that come to us who want to change their brand perception and or need to earn trust with a younger demographic. Cracker Barrel was one of those brands who came to us to earn trust with a younger consumer than they currently had. We executed many programs for them, but one that I'm most proud of and that has really earned a lot of press was a program we did with Dolly Parton. Who doesn't love Dolly Parton? Dolly Parton and Pentatonics. And essentially they recreated the song Jolene, one of her famous songs, on the front porch of a Cracker Barrel, shot a lot of great content. It ended up winning a Grammy. That song had never won a Grammy before. And so Cracker Barrel is the first brand to ever win a Grammy. So talk about relevance. That did it. So we had many programs following that, but that was just a really fun one. There's another subset of brands who are big enterprise brands, enterprise car rental, Amazon, a lot of great Under Armour, a lot of great brands that we work with. And they're wanting specific entertainment or music or pop culture strategies that we build for them. One that we're launching actually next weekend is a program for Under Armour called the Hype House, really targeting young girls about 9 to 12 years old who the data shows are dropping out of sports. And so creating an experience where they can get excited about sports again. They can be encouraged. They can meet female mentors in sports that aren't the mainstream sports. So we're looking at, wrestling and ping pong and archery, and girls have so many more opportunities these days, but the data shows they're not participating because of confidence. So really building a campaign and experience that will help them build that confidence. And then we have another subset of clients called challenger brands. Those are brands that are typically fast growing startups, a lot of tech brands. Consider when we started working with Bumble 6 years ago, would consider them a challenger brand, and they need to grow quickly. They need to be integrated to a lot of big moments, a lot of awareness. And so one of the favorite campaigns that I've ever worked on was for Bumble when we launched their Super Bowl campaign about 5 years into that relationship with Serena Williams, and put Bumble on the map, right? We all know how that ended with an IPO, and everyone was very successful together. So that's a fun case study as well. But our clients really fall into those three buckets.
I love it. And I mean, as you described that, you could see this playing out in any part of the life cycle of a brand as well. So from starting up, growing fast, to trying to revitalize or refresh the brand in the future. As you think about these examples, but also how questions and goals that people come to you with, how do you think about the need for a brand? Should they be focused on culture making or shaping, or chasing culture? I know that may sound like a nuanced question, but I'm curious to get your thoughts on it.
I'd say it depends on the size of the brand. It is difficult to create your own culture wave. There are big brands that have the budgets and the size to be able to do that. Nike, one. I would consider them a leader in culture. Not every brand is at that stage. So it's much easier to ride the wave, right? Something that's already happening, to figure out how your brand can authentically fit into that. I'll give an example. Bumble came to us about 3 or 4 years ago wanting to get into music festivals. And like every other brand, that looked like a pop-up at the festival or some kind of experiential space. We did a little bit of research and found that only 14% of performers on festival stages were women. So Bumble being a female-first app that's all about equitable relationships, we essentially recommended to them that we couldn't just go in and do pop-ups at these festivals if the festival doesn't stand for the same thing that Bumble does. And so we made a deal with C3 around many of their festivals, Austin City Limits, Lollapalooza, their whole roster, to say that we were going to come in as a partner, the sponsor. And while we had all the traditional sponsorship elements, we were going to start a mentorship program where female musicians found through the app would be mentored by many of the headliners on those stages, with the goal of them then performing 2 or 3 years later. And we would essentially right-size that percentage, so to have equal 50-50 representation on those festival stages. So I think looking at these partnerships and programs as, we're going to enter a space that is already relevant with our consumer, but we're going to come in, we're going to shape culture by doing that. We're going to actually change and make sure that this is an equitable space with the brand equity. And that was an authentic narrative for Bumble. And it ended up, I think that headline alone got way more press than any festival activation or pop-up that we could have created. So I think the way that we look at partnerships and campaigns is what is relevant, where do we need to show up? But by being there, how do we change culture?
No, that's a great example because I hadn't thought about the fact of how you construct and who you choose to engage with and what those terms of the deal are could actually shape the culture in the future, that you're trying to achieve. Not only be in line with your core values as a company or a brand, but like hadn't thought about, and maybe marketers actually need to be thinking about that more because we do have collectively a lot of money on the table to drive change. I know there are some brands that are doing this, I think in the women's soccer league as one example.
Yeah. We did a lot of great programs for Bumble, and every partnership that we brokered, there was always an element, whether it was public facing or not, there's always an element that ensured that the partner was aligned with Bumble's values of equal representation. So the Clippers partnership that Bumble had for several years, there were many things within the Clippers organization that were impacted by that partnership. There were more women hired into sales roles. There were more mentorship programs for women within that organization that Bumble created. And so I would challenge every brand to think about, we're not just selling product. That's just very transactional with consumers. How are we showing up? How are we making life better for consumers? And it's not just a better tasting beverage. It's like, what are we changing in their lives that will have forever impact? And those are the brands that have staying power, and you're going to see grow very quickly, I think, this year.
Interesting. You have a really unique vantage point. I mean, you're at the intersection of brands and culture makers, so to speak. And both sides of that equation actually need to market themselves. They need to be out in front. Just curious, to get your thoughts on how should marketing leaders approach marketing? Because I mean, as you know, most people don't like ads. They're trying to block them and as much as they can. There's a fragmentation of how we reach them. So I just curious, how do you think we should be approaching marketing given your vantage point that you sit at?
I tell all of my clients the goal for 2023 is to build community over followers. We've been living in a Web 2 world for a long time of we're measuring likes and engagements and follower numbers, which doesn't equate to building community or loyal customers. It's just a number. Because we like numbers, we like KPIs, right? Everyone wants to prove the program was a success. But building an Instagram channel, if it's not a two-way conversation or a community approach, will not translate. And so we've just launched a Web3 division. I think a lot of brands are now moving into that space because that space allows you to build a community with a two-way exchange. And I think that's going to be a defining moment for brands who accept that and invest in Web3 strategies. Not a stunt. I want to be clear. It's not dropping an NFT and calling it a day. It's building a long-term strategy. Starbucks has done I believe, has built a great program that they just announced. It's their loyalty program that is integrating Web3 strategies into it. And I think they're doing it the right way. They're making an investment. So I would say, again, when you say how to approach marketing, very simply community over followers.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And as we move towards things like Web3, you don't own it anymore, right? In those environments, you are one voice of many in that regard. And there's not really a megaphone even to use if you wanted to, in some respects. I mean, I guess you can set the environment to some degree, but it's a different game altogether, it feels like.
Yeah. We just launched an educational workshop series for our clients on Web3. And it's been my favorite thing that we've launched to date because every C-suite executive coming in is starting at the same baseline, which is,
what is this?
Yeah, we don't know anything coming in, and there's a vulnerability to that and an excitement to that. Where when you're all starting at the same starting line, it feels, I think, it empowers you, and it's exciting for people who are builders and risk takers and want to try new things. And so it's been really neat to see those groups come together, and the walls are down, right? You can't fake it anymore. And I think they all admit they're faking it till they make it in some respects. And we had one client say, I understand that NFTs exist. That's where we're starting with this, right? And so it's fun, these folks that know so much about marketing and are respected on such high levels, it's kind of humbled us all. And we're all in it together. So it's been really fun to learn and grow and to help our clients understand this space. And so I think it's a new space, and we shouldn't be scared of it. We should just be humble about it and learn as much as we can.
Well, and as you launch this educational piece, what is the logical next step for you guys? Is it to help figure out how to make this a reality for them, whether it's a Web3 or community build, or whether it's NFTs or other types of things? I'm just curious, where you see that going from your own, keeping your own business fresh, so to speak.
Yeah, I think it's all of it. In the same way that we help brands figure out how to integrate into pop culture and how they show up, we're helping them understand how they show up in this space. And it looks different for every brand. As I mentioned, they're all different. They all different budgets and different types of consumers. And it might not be right for somebody right now, but in 6 months that they may be in a different place. So we really dive in to analyze where they are as a brand, what resources they have, and what makes sense for them. It looks different for every single client.
So we were just talking about how you're pushing the business forward in terms of Web3 and other areas to help other marketers educate themselves. But how are you innovating yourself, if that makes sense?
We just launched a new division of FlyteVu called Fv Incubator. The background to this is that when we started working with Bumble 5 or 6 years ago, they were a small team, we were a small team, and we were able to help them grow very quickly through pop culture, all the way to IPO. What a beautiful and fun ride it was for all of us. And there's been several brands after that. ClassPass, Drybar, we've worked with so many great mission-driven brands. The issue being our large agency model doesn't always work for smaller startups who are moving fast and have small teams, and budgets don't always allow for agency retainers. So we launched the incubator, where we sign small mission-driven startups that we believe in. And we work with them for a year, services in exchange for equity. And then after that year, typically there's a raise, at which point they're able to then come over to FlyteVu in our agency model. Then it makes sense as they gear up and activate across all marketing channels. So in that first year, a lot of what we're doing is influencer seeding, finding celebrity partners. There's events, there's other things that they need to do to kind of build that base and get ready for a raise. So I mentioned Kitty and Vibe. That's our first client in the incubator. And we've been able to partner them with several celebrity ambassadors, several events, several other brand partners, aligning them with Sephora and Moo and other brands to really gain relevance and grow very quickly. And so the neat thing about Fv Incubator and why I'm so excited about this is because it allows all of our FlyteVu staff and employees to invest in those brands right alongside that Series A, where normally they wouldn't be able to invest at that level or with a small minimum. And that was something I never had in my career, especially in my 20s as a young female in the entertainment industry. I heard about investment opportunities, but the minimum was 100,000 plus, and I was making 25,000 a year. So that wasn't in my budget. And so I just never knew that there could be opportunities or how to even navigate that space. And so I wanted to give my staff the opportunity to consider those opportunities at a much younger age and understand how angel investing works, and they can make some informed decisions. So I'm super excited. I don't know of another agency that offers this opportunity to their staff or has anything like this that's set up, but that's how we're innovating. Again, it's for our clients, but also as an agency, how are we really bringing opportunities to our own staff that they wouldn't otherwise have?
Well, you're about to probably get a flood of applications after this podcast goes live. So be prepared. That's an amazing opportunity. And you're cooking on all levels, right? You've got your own mission and purpose figured out. You're maximizing their contribution and just giving them an opportunity to invest and learn about that process. I can foresee a future where you've got millionaires working at your agency and they just love it because it's self-reinforcing who they are as people. It's awesome.
Yeah, I find that the people who apply to work at FlyteVu are driven by purpose. And there's a lot of other benefits and we do great work. That's the first thing that they say in the interview when I ask them, what do you know about FlyteVu? And so what a wonderful place to start. And I'm really proud of the team and the company and the culture that we built.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, I know we wanted to come back to purpose, and I know FlyteVu, you guys have your own company foundation as well. So I'd love to have you tell me a little bit about that, and like, why was that needed, or what was the solve that you were looking for there?
Well, I'm going to start at the beginning. So when I worked at CAA, which is an amazing talent agency, great company, I was brokering a lot of big celebrity endorsement deals. And I was making money for a lot of people who already had a lot of it. And that just wasn't very fulfilling in life. I loved the work, but myself, I needed to have a greater purpose. And so when Jeremy and I decided to launch FlyteVu, we said, we love this work. We think it's meaningful and impactful, but it has to be for something greater, not just so that everyone can make a lot of money. So we built FlyteVu on the foundation of giving back. So every year at the agency, we look at the success of the company based on how much we've been able to give. It's a very different approach. It's a very different approach for culture when you're in a culture that has a mindset of, I want to leave more than I take. I think if we all served that way in life, be a very different, very different world that we live in, right? So that's the culture here. How do we leave more than we take? We do that a couple different ways. Within our programs and campaigns that we build, there is always a give back element. Within our own agency, 20% of everything that we make goes into the FlyteVu Fund. It's a donor advised fund where our clients, our vendors, our staff can all request grants or money from that fund for organizations or philanthropies that they are passionate about. And it is my favorite part of my job because it's so fun to see, especially young people come in and ask for $500 or $1,000 for something that they're passionate about, an organization, and how they get involved and how they make that turn into 10,000. Or, they do a fundraiser on Facebook and, they raise a bunch of money and they turn that into more, and then they sponsor whatever gala. I mean, it's just amazing. It's when they're empowered. At that age, you don't have $1,000 or $5,000 or $10,000. But if you have a company that will support those efforts, it's amazing the hustle that they have and the heart that they have. And that's what I wanted to see our agency having impact in that way. And Jeremy and I can only do so much as founders, but when we have an agency of 30 people that are out there in the community making a difference, it becomes pretty impactful. So to date, we've donated over $1 million since FlyteVu's inception to different organizations through the fund and through our own employees. So people ask where that comes from. Jeremy and I have a really strong faith. I'm a Christian. I believe we are very blessed, and God has blessed us in so many ways. And it's not ours. Whatever we have is not ours. And we want to give that back and make the world a better place.
I love that. And to your point, like when you're younger, working for a company, dollars are many times scarce, but time and energy is not. And I almost see you guys as like philanthropic seed investors, right? Like huge return on a little bit of money that can be magnified or multiplied many, many times over by the efforts of others. That's amazing.
I have to tell a story. So one of our employees, he's been with us since the beginning, he asked for a grant from the FlyteVu Fund for an organization. It's a human trafficking organization that he was passionate about. He has a little daughter, single dad with a little girl, felt very connected to that. So we did. I didn't really hear anything back until he invited me to the gala, the annual gala. So I attended the gala as, his guest. We had some seats, and I walk in, and this entire gala is sponsored by FlyteVu. Our name is in gobos all around the room. He is on the board, and he is also the head of the organization, which is international, flew in for this to meet me. And essentially explained that this person who sits on the creative team had built their entire website in his spare time, because that's his skill at our agency, and how grateful they were and the impact that he had made. And I thought, I know none of this. This is amazing. But just that, like you said, talent, time, skill, and a little bit of money, can make exponential impact. And that's what in my career, I never had, right? I had the time and money. And while I wanted to sit on the board, I didn't have the check to get me there. Right. So man, I want these young folks to have a seat at the table. And sometimes it's the money that gets you a seat at the table. But when you're there, you can have real impact. And so that's what I want to transform and give them the opportunity to do. And so there's so many stories like that where I get stopped in the street or get emails or calls about amazing work that apparently we funded and, and I'm not aware of it, but it's how great is that? This is the best feeling.
I mean, it's such a gift in and of itself. The fact that you don't know the impact that you're having, and then you get these little gifts delivered in messages or thank yous from time to time. That's awesome. Well, it's a phenomenal business that you and Jeremy have created. And I mean, if you can just take those examples of what your employees can do with minute amount of money and magnify the impact, I can only imagine what you can do for clients. So, I mean, just using that as one example. And I should ask the question before we move on, do I need a big budget? I mean, obviously big brands and big budget brands are doing this work, but like, is that always needed?
No, actually. And I think that is the misconception about this work, that brands see the big Coca-Colas or the big Pepsis and they assume, wow, those big deals, Super Bowl ads, like that must cost a lot of money. And Super Bowl ads do, I should say that. But celebrity partnerships or experiential events, they don't always need to cost 7 figures or even high 6 figures. We do a lot of programs that are low 6 figures. And sometimes there's equity deals that are trade. So part of the work we do with our clients is sit down and understand where they are as a brand, what are the assets that they have that are valuable to a partner, and try to create a balanced partnership or equation where both parties profit in some way, but it's not always cash. In the past year, I've done probably more equity deals than I have cash deals because talent is smart. Now they understand, and quite frankly, a lot of our clients are startups, and I love that. I love that space. I mentioned working with a lot of challenger brands. I love the hustle, the speed. They're all risk takers. Really, really great group of people to work in that challenge us. But I think it's just getting innovative with the deals. And part of that is my experience as an agent for so long on the other side of the table, understanding that these big celebrities, they don't need another $1 million. That's not why they want to do the partnership. It's either something they're passionate about, it's something that's going to give back, it's something that maybe elevates them or positions them in a different space or a different vertical than they've never had before. It's something that maybe will give back to their own community that they're passionate about. So you've got to find the passion points. It's not just about the check or the dollar sign.
It makes sense. And I mean, just like brands need to diversify the artists that they're working with are on that same journey, right? Like diversifying their income strategy, whether it's like equity or long-term plays or buying into businesses and scaling themselves, or, passion projects, to your point, like causes that they really care a lot about. That's fantastic.
I want to share a funny story. When I was at the talent agency, I remember there was a band, very A-list band at the time, and they were getting 7+ figure deals consistently. They took a few, but they were passing on a lot just because they were the top band at the time. And one of the singers of the band called and he said, "Laura, I just want a tractor. Can you get me? I'll do whatever it takes. I'll do press. I'll do whatever." And I thought, that's so strange. He could just buy a tractor. And sure enough, right, any tractor company would have been happy. They were happy to gift him a tractor. What a great deal for them. Again, talent, they may just want something that they want, or they may be passionate about something. And if you're the brand that meets that request, that's what you want to find, is those opportunities, right? They really want this. And it's not about the money. It's about fulfilling some other need or desire that they have. And that's what we do at FlyteVu. We understand, and because we sit in entertainment, we know the needs and what talent and properties and partnerships, what they're looking for, and we match them with our clients. So that creates that equitable relationship and oftentimes very large cost savings or efficiencies that maybe brands hadn't considered before.
I love that. Well, I don't have a tractor, but I'll try to figure out what I have.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, one of the things we like to do with everyone that comes on the show the first time around is I've got a series of questions I like to ask, get to know you a little bit better. We know you're a new mom, but curious, maybe even before that, like what experience maybe of your past defines or makes up who you are today?
So in 2019, I lost my significant other to an overdose, and it was unexpected. He had been a pillar in the recovery community for a long time. He had been clean for a long time, almost a decade. And I knew very little about addiction or trauma. And when it happened, it was so unexpected. And because he had been known in those circles, it was on the news and it was the headline on Fox, it was the headline on CNN. And I was thrust into this space and needed to understand it. And so I went on a quest to really understand trauma and pain and mental health and understanding the importance of all of those things. And say, if you don't heal a wound, you bleed on everyone else around you, right? And I started my own path of healing. And so that experience, just as a leader now at a company, one, taught me empathy, that everyone's going through something. Two, it taught me the importance of mental health and creating space and a safe space for people to talk about hard things. And three, the sanctity of life, that time is finite. And especially from a business perspective, the time that people spend working, right, is oftentimes more than what they spend with their families. And they are giving me, all the people at my company are giving me and the company their most precious resource that they can't get back, which is time. And so instead of just focusing on how do we grow this company, how do I really focus my effort on giving them tools to be whole and healthy individuals and to create really a good and balanced life for people that are going to give me their most precious gift. And so I think just as a leader, that was a defining moment in my life, learning about loss and grief and processing all of that and just finding myself showing up much differently for my team, for myself, and for my family too. So I think that was the most, I would say in the last 5 years, the most impactful moment.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I know that can't be an easy thing to wade through and find the light to move towards, if you will.
I'll share, there were a lot of amazing, beautiful gifts that came from that chapter, as we talked about earlier. And one of them that is business related is that I learned of a brand. It's called Clean Cause. It's an energy drink that 50% of the proceeds go towards sober living scholarships. And so when I learned about this brand, it's a wonderful tasting energy drink. So I had actually consumed it and saw the good that they were doing. And I called the owner and his name is Wes Hurt. And I said, Wes, I think I can help you. I'm passionate about this. Here's why I connect to it. Make a long story short, we ended up working with them as a brand, and Macklemore, we engaged. He's been very open about his addiction struggles and journey. And he is now the creative director for Clean Cause. And we've been able to launch quite a few campaigns with Macklemore and Clean Cause and really, break the stigma of addiction, especially in pop culture. And it's been just an amazing program to be a part of. And I would never have had the knowledge, experience, empathy, or understanding to broker that deal or to create that campaign, the level that we did, if I had not walked through that chapter. And so that's been an amazing journey. And I should say also Macklemore's music was what helped me understand addiction. And so I just give him a lot of credit as an artist for having the courage to share and to be open about his struggles. I think that's the beauty of music and why we do so much in music is how it connects to people emotionally and gives them words to what maybe they can't put words to on their own. I
love it. Well, if you were starting this journey all over again, what advice would you give your younger self?
My advice would be to trust my gut, especially in starting FlyteVu. People gave me so much advice, much of which contradicted each other. And my gut was always right, whether it be investments or our structure, how much money we were spending or not, P&Ls, all of the things people told me to set up differently or what not to do or to do. My gut was always right. And I think anytime I've gone against that, it hasn't been the right decision, or anytime I've let the voices kind of be louder than my own gut, it hasn't worked out. So just trust yourself. There's a quote that the reason why we're called FlyteVu, it's one of my favorite quotes. It says, a bird doesn't worry that the branch that it's standing on will break because it believes in its ability to fly. And so it's like, man, you can't trust the branch, right? You got to trust your wings. And I think that has proven over and over again to be true.
I love that. Well, is there a topic either you're learning more about right now or you think marketers need to be learning more about?
I think we covered it, but Web3 would be the next big wave that that marketers need to be ready for. It's here already. And, where it goes, we have to be prepared and planned.
Love it. And you mentioned, I usually ask this question, are there brands, companies, or causes you follow or think other people should take notice of? You mentioned Clean Cause. We'll obviously link to that, but anything else come to mind for you, brands or companies or causes?
Yeah, there's one brand we're working with. The brand is called Kitty and Vibe. It's a swimwear brand. They're actually part of our incubator, which we didn't get a chance to talk about, but I'd love to come back to. Started by a woman in her late 20s, and it's built, their hashtag is called Kind is My Vibe. They have a unique sizing metric that really allows women of all shapes and sizes to shop this brand and find a fit and cut that is right for them, and really transforming the swimwear space and how people feel about their bodies. And it's been interesting. She's a young founder, but she understands community, and she has built a very, very loyal community, not followers, although she has those too. But she really sources all of her marketing from her own customers. Her customers decide the prints and the styles, which then translate to guaranteed sales. And her company has seen phenomenal growth year over year. And she doesn't have an MBA, or she didn't go to Harvard Business School. And she built the brand in her closet in New York City, mailing packages from her little apartment to now a multi-million-dollar brand. And it's very much similar to the Sarah Blakely Spanx story in all of this. But I just love the brand for what it stands for, especially with women in culture. And also for what she stands for is that if anyone has a dream, has a good idea, works hard, you can make it happen. And it's a beautiful story. And I think I connect well to, again, brands that have purpose and have founders who have passion and don't necessarily follow the rules. And so I think that's a brand to watch, and that I've watched her be successful by understanding how to build community. Now, she does leverage her socials to do that, but it goes beyond that. It's not a one-way conversation. She really engages the community in building the brand.
Love it. So you have time for one more question. The question is, what's the largest opportunity or threat facing marketers today?
I would say the biggest obstacle facing marketers is indecision. There are so many tactics and tools and paths for marketers to take when thinking about building campaigns or executing programs. But I find that when someone has too many choices, they don't choose anything. And so I think we're experiencing that now, where marketers should care less about process and more about putting things into the world, because social media and all of the resources and platforms we have now, you're going to hear really quickly back from your consumers if it's right or not. And you can quickly adapt and adjust. So the speed at which marketers need to move is so much faster than it's ever been before. And process can encumber that, and decision can encumber that. Marketers need to be able to move quickly, have processes to do that, and be able to react and adjust to stay relevant. And so I would say that that's a threat to a lot of organizations, large organizations that are too encumbered by process.
No, I 100% agree. I actually was talking to a CMO this morning. I'll use her name because I want to give her credit, but Andrea Brimmer, she's CMO of Ally Financial. And she used the term like marketers need to be brave, or they need to have bravery and make decisions. They can be change makers. They just need to make a decision.
Yeah.
To your point.
Yeah.
Well, Laura, thank you for coming on the show. This has been fascinating. Learn about your business, what you're doing for all your clients, the incubator concept that you're launching. So much to take away from this conversation. So thank you for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Hi, it's Alan again. Marketing Today was created and produced by me, with support from my team and podcast editors, sound engineers, and writers at Share Your Genius. Find them at shareyourgenius.com. If you're new to Marketing Today, please feel free to write us a review on iTunes or your favorite listening platform. Don't forget to subscribe on marketingtodaypodcast.com and tell your friends and colleagues about the show. I love to hear from listeners. You can contact me on marketingtodaypodcast.com. There, you will also find complete show notes, links to what was discussed in the episode today, and you can search our archives. I'm Alan Hart, and this is Marketing Today.